I figured today we could talk a little bit about what a PAP looks like and what a colposcopy looks like. I've had the video before about who needs a colposcopy and kind of like, what the decision-making process can look like for that, but I want to show you the actual PAP. I want to show you the actual colposcope and what that looks like and what the setup looks like and kind of what you can experience. Welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, that like button, share, tell a friend. We're gonna keep these conversations going. I figured today we could talk a little bit about what a PAP looks like and what a colposcopy looks like. I've had the video before about who needs a colposcopy and kind of like, what the decision-making process can look like for that, but I want to show you the actual PAP. I want to show you the actual colposcope and what that looks like and what the setup looks like and kind of what you can experience. Going into a colposcopy, sometimes it's a little bit crampy. Usually it's not. I tell people it's like a prolonged PAP. So expect it to be like a prolonged PAP, but I don't tell people it's going to be like super painful or super intense, but somewhat crampy, somewhat uncomfortable for sure. And so feel free to take some ibuprofen beforehand or some Tylenol, not a whole lot, but just know that that's not an unreasonable preparation. But I want to get you to the instruments and to the devices and things that we use. So let's get into it. So let's go in here and see what it looks like in the colposcopy room. So first off, this is a colposcope. And it looks like a super archaic contraption. But keep in mind, what we're doing with it is we're actually looking through this little scope. I don't know if you can see through there because this is a whole camera. But yeah, you can't really. Either that or there's nothing there to see. But basically, this is what I look through. And when I look through it, imagine this is your cervix. And I can see, minus the anovera ring, I can see really close and really up close the cervix, the external os, which is that little hole, and just kind of the area around. And what I do is I actually take vinegar, acetic acid, and I kind of paint the cervix with that. And that actually changes cells to a version that I can see them. This is actually a biopsy instrument called a spiral brush. Let me see if I can hold it up. This is a biopsy instrument called a spiral brush. It's like a little brush that kind of can collect cells. There's also an instrument called an endocervical curette. And then there is also something called a Kevorkian biopsy tool that I rarely use because I'm just not trying to cause that much discomfort if I can avoid it. But it is actually a really good tool for sampling. But this is the colposcope. And again, imagine that is used to magnify a cervix from something like this to something like this, so you can really see the detail and take biopsies when necessary. And remember, the cervix is at the end of the uterus. Again, minus this anovera ring, which, no offense to anovera, it's just really a great model. But of course, the ring is just like in the way. But again, you can see that the cervix is the end of the uterus. And with the colposcope, you can just really magnify and see in there. One thing I really love about my office is that we have various sizes and shapes of speculums. So the thing about a speculum is that it is used to open the vagina so you can see in there clearly, but it can be uncomfortable for some people. And so having various sizes and shapes and not pretending like everyone is one size fits all is super important. So as you can see, it looks like kind of an ominous drawer. Like, I'll give you that, right? I don't even know why this old school magnifying glass is in there. But, these are the various sizes and shapes. They're Peterson speculums, Graves speculums. I do want to show you, let me get a glove, because I do want to show you kind of the differences without just touching on them, because again, a gynecologist, I got to be somewhat of a germaphobe. Not that they're germy, I just don't want to touch them and then somebody come up in here later and be like, you was all touching on these speculums. Okay, so kind of smaller. This is a very small Peterson for somebody who's menopausal. See, it's like more narrow than the length of my finger. or the width of my finger, and this one is probably a little bit more than the width of my finger, but still very, very, small and comfortable. This is a Peterson speculum, which is actually more of a standard speculum. If you can imagine my hand, it's not huge. It's actually like kind of a medium-sized speculum. This is a Graves speculum. So Graves is actually more for somebody who's maybe had babies before. The vagina is has a little bit more space. No offense, but a little bit more space. If you don't have a Graves with somebody in that specific situation, the vagina can kind of like close in on you. You're trying to look in there with this speculum, and it's like closing in. So you need something that has a little bit more spread. This is a longer Peterson, so this one is actually longer than this one, as you can tell. So some people's vaginas are longer and shorter, just like penises are longer and shorter. Vaginas are longer and shorter. So this is still a kind of a more narrow speculum, but longer. So longer Petersons, medium Graves, smaller Petersons, pediatric. So, again, this is a little bit wide, but as you can tell, this is even smaller than this original medium Peterson. And when you look at these two together, the difference is pretty dramatic too. Like, again, this one was the one that was smaller than my finger, so it's like more for menopausal people or pediatric. And then this one is a little bit wider, but not as wide as, nowhere near as wide as the Graves, and not even as wide as the Peterson. So again, various specula. I just pluraled speculum. And then this is the PAP itself, a thin prep, and then this is a PAP brush. And if you can imagine, I'm just taking y'all all around the office, maneuvering example. But if you can imagine, we go in here with the speculum, and then we just take a little sample at the cervix. Can you see that? Take a little sample at the cervix with the brush, and that gives us that kind of random selection, the PAP. That random selection that the PAP would pick up. You have to get that random selection of cells, and then if any of those cells flag as abnormal, that's when we go to colposcopy, because now that's when we're trying to figure out, like, what is abnormal. Is there anything in particular abnormal? What needs to be sampled? What doesn't? Put everything back because we actually working today. But, look at my peacock in the background. But yeah, that's PAP. That's what a PAP is. That's what a colposcopy is. I think I've talked about who needs a colposcopy before, but I don't think I've told you all these details. So drop a comment, drop a question, drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification button. And just, let me know what else you want to talk about, or what else you want to hear about. Lots more videos coming, but at least you can kind of see, a day in life, what we do around here. Okay? Bye.